How is everybody today? How many of you would rather be outside on this gorgeous spring day? Yeah, me too. I was talking to Mike Schreiner on the way in, another group, and just said, we should be able to do this outside. We have to figure out how to do this, take advantage of these beautiful days. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you to those of you who are tuning in via the web or by video. This is the culmination of the Mondays in March series of presentations by the executive leadership of our institution. And we choose to continue to do these. It's the midpoint of the year, and it's a great time for us to stop and reflect on how we're doing in terms of implementing our plans. Are we being successful? Gives us an opportunity to make some adjustments based on either the need to change course, correct course, or perhaps optimize results. It also gives us a great opportunity to think about, okay, now how do we continue from where we are today, not only through the course of this year, but through the next year and the years beyond. So it's a very important time for us to all kind of look back and then look forward and make sure that we're doing the right things that help UTMB be successful. I don't want to spend a lot of time today going back into the detail that Dr. Cooper, Ms. Hollenberger, and Mr. Elger laid out for you. What I want to do, and I designed this presentation to be relatively short, is just focus on those themes at the institutional level that are really guiding our thinking about now and the future. So I'll point those out to you and spend some time with those. We should finish in plenty of time to allow you to ask questions, anything about what I've said today or anything about any of the presentations or anything else that you're concerned about is fair game for questions today. So I encourage you to please ask questions. If I can't answer them, then I'll pick on somebody else who hopefully can. Our agenda, just again, talk a little bit about how we're doing, look forward a bit, talk about those themes, ensuring a sustainable future, and then again, opportunity to address questions. I think all of the EVPs talked about what remarkable progress we've made over the past 3.5 years. Really is amazing to look at where we were after Hurricane Ike. We can even kind of extend that look back to where we were even just a little before Hurricane Ike and look at the challenges that we were facing, look at all of the things that we had to do, and think about what's happened in the intervening period and be pleased and thankful that we are where we are now. So many great things that have happened, all facilitated by the people here. We certainly went through a very rough stretch. We lost all those people. We cut people, very difficult times for us, made very difficult decisions about how we best used our scant resources to first preserve and protect this place, which, as you remember, was our mantra for a while, and then began the slow process of rebuilding. It really was slow. Just thinking about walking around and looking at this place, even though there was a lot going on, a lot of preparation, a lot of work behind the scenes, the progress really wasn't apparent, at least for a while. But I hope that your sense is something like mine. It's almost been a bit like a flywheel. You know how a flywheel works? It takes a while to get it going, but once it reaches a certain speed, then that speed and that energy is sustained, and it only picks up speed and energy over the course of time. So I feel like that's what's happening here, and that flywheel, if you will, has marvelous potential for the future in terms of helping UTMB or positioning us to be successful. So just some of the things that I think were touched on in the presentations. Our enrollments are at an all-time high. Our faculty and staff in the schools have worked really hard to think about where we should be with regard to enrollments, to support these record levels of enrollments, and probably most importantly, responding to a challenge that I laid out, think about what it will take to grow enrollments beyond where we are today. Clearly, we're missing some critical pieces that will allow that to happen. But understanding what those critical pieces are, what gaps exist, will allow us to prioritize our obtainment of resources and then investment of resources so we can appropriately grow our enrollments over the coming years. All kinds of marvelous rankings and recognitions and awards coming to our individual UTMB staff members and faculty as well as to groups here. And again, just recognition of success and growing success over the past several years. One of the things I'm not sure that we specifically mentioned, although Dr. Cooper alluded to this, is that scientific discovery continues here. In fact, last year we had a record number of patents issued to members of our science faculty, 18 in total, and we filed 51, so disclosures of new inventions. A lot of work going on with facilities, expansion of clinical facilities. Ms. Sollenberger talked about that. Mr. Elger in particular talked about a lot of infrastructure investments and improvements. We talked about construction. Each of the EVPs talked about a select number of new recruits, bringing new talent to the institution, as well as some of the programs that are being initiated to help all of us grow our professional skills and experiences, help us further develop so we can serve UTMB better in the future. Overall, I want to say thank you to everyone for very sound management. I don't mean this for the executive level or even the senior level of management in the institution. I mean this for everybody who has worked so hard to very carefully manage the resources that are entrusted to them on a daily basis. If that hadn't happened here, if everyone hadn't been such good stewards, or a good steward, then we wouldn't be successful today. So thank you, thank you, thank you from the bottom of my heart for helping us manage through thin and thick to achieve almost an unprecedented level of success. This slide just, again, allows me to say thank you. You know, it truly is, from my perspective, about having the right stuff. And I think the people at UTMB have the right stuff. It's not to say that we aren't challenged, that we don't work really hard, and that we don't, seems regularly these days, as was pointed out by a couple of people in these presentations, sort of stop and say, whoa, how much longer can we go at this pace? We all know that everyone's working very hard. The flip side is everybody really is engaged and wants to do all that they can to help their colleagues, their work group, UTMB as a whole, be successful. That's much appreciated, a very strong part of our culture, and has sustained us and will continue to help us be successful as we move ahead. We've started interviewing candidates for the academic provost position, Dean of the School of Medicine. And even though we're early in that course, the candidates we've interviewed have, just in their short time on the campus, usually it's been only a matter of hours, identified that important sense of family. That's such a big part of UTMB. They understand that there is that spirit of collaboration here, and at least the ones we've interviewed thus far said, you know, it really is different here. It is at a higher level, and they have also said they can see how that can uniquely help us achieve high levels of success up to now and into the future. So it's nice to hear that from people who are visiting our campus for the first time. So looking ahead, Mr. Elger first coined the phrase, at least started using it commonly, fix, run, grow. I think we've all gotten used to that, and we were thinking about that in the context of what we needed to do after Hurricane Ike. We needed to fix the place up. We needed to continue to make it run, particularly for our students and faculty members to serve our communities. But we also needed to think about and execute growth, particularly along the lines or in the areas that help us be more financially successful or generate excellent outcomes. And we've done that quite well. I wish I could tell you that the need to do that is over. but I don't think it really is. Even though the context has changed, I think this is going to be an ongoing challenge for us. Because one of the things that will happen is we'll continue to have challenges. You know, it seems that change is always present, and at least to me, the pace of change continues to accelerate. And so with where we are with communication these days and a lot of external scrutiny, concerns of our own people about achieving excellence and making things better, I think we're going to be constant in the mode of fixing things or trying to make things work better. And I think that's actually okay. I don't think it's a bad thing. It's part of our culture. Again, coming back to our tagline that we selected, working together to work wonders, and it really is about making things better over the course of time. So I think that's okay. Grow, not grow all across the board, not physically grow across the board, but like with enrollment. What makes sense in terms of the enrollment for the schools together for each of the schools? We know that Texas has huge challenges in terms of its population growth, fastest growing state in the nation. We've mentioned that several times. We don't have enough health professionals. We really don't have enough scientists to be successful, either economically or in terms of just helping us generate new knowledge that keeps us where we need to be with regard to the practice of medicine, health professions, or a lot of other things also. So what's UTMB's role in terms of helping Texas be where it needs to be, economically, academically, from the standpoint of quality of life? It makes sense that we think about how we grow enrollments. Probably is not going to necessarily mean enrolling a lot more students in the typical classroom situations we've had in the past. Extended forms of learning, online courses, use of technology, leveraging technology more effectively, perhaps more collaboration, certainly among the different UT institutions. Maybe, for example, in some of the schools, rather than have each of the schools offer unique courses, at least for that institution, with the same content, maybe we can figure out how to sort of combine the approach, combine our resources, and offer the same course to students at multiple places. Some of that's occurring already, but maybe we should think more about doing things like that in the future. So again, continued challenges, a lot of need to continue to think about change. I think we're very well positioned to be able to continue to accommodate, fix, run, grow as we go forward. I noticed that Ms. Sollenberger was looking at this lithograph. Does anybody know the history of this? Well, I'm not much of an art historian, so I had to be taught also. But this is a Dutch graphic artist named M.C. Escher. And he did an entire series of lithographs with regard to reality. And so this one looks at relativity. This one looks at one of his thoughts about relativity. Everybody has different perspectives. When I looked at this, I thought about, gosh, I feel like this sometimes, which way is up with all that's going on? So this seemed like sort of a fun graphics piece to put in for this slide. It's not uncommon for us to be thinking about, gosh, which way is up? What perspectives really matter, and how do we, working together, put all those perspectives together for our personal success, for the success of our group that we work with, or the groups that we work with, and for the success of our institution. It's going to continue to be a challenge for us as we go forward, but again, I think we're well equipped to deal effectively with that challenge. All right, so I talked about, by the way, change. It's highlighted in red here. That is one of the themes, constant change. We need to be prepared to deal with that. So talking about ensuring a successful future a little bit more, we spent a lot of time planning. And you've heard about some of the details of our plans. Hopefully you've heard about the whys, why we have these plans, what they're based on. In many instances, they're not only based on what's happening around us now, but they're based on what we think is likely to happen are a range of possibilities of what may happen in the future. And we're adjusting our course over the course of time based on what is happening or how our concepts of what will happen are changing. So we think our plans are actually pretty sound. We continue to improve our process for planning. I truly believe that people across the institution are involved in planning, and our plans, to the extent that they should, cascade through the institution. So the work unit plans are really related in many ways to the institutional plans, and certainly in the ways that they should be. So that's a good thing. It helps us make better decisions. But in the face of so much change and in the face of uncertainty, how do you really make good decisions? How do you make wise investments? And I think each of the EVPs has talked about all of the things that are changing in their spheres of influence. And the one conclusion that we've come to is no matter what, we need to have a very strong and capable infrastructure. And we need to make some significant investments in our infrastructure that supports each of the mission areas as well as the business and support areas. Without that strong and stable infrastructure, we can't make good decisions. We can't support our people. We can't support our mission work. And as things change rapidly, we're not going to be able to keep up. So you heard about some of the things that are happening. Mr. Elcher and I think Ms. Sallenberger also mentioned UTMB Connect. It's a $40+ million investment in our billing IT infrastructure that brings together our ability to create bills, record what's happening, manage demographic information for the benefits of our patients, and puts a lot more power in the hands of our patients relative to financial matters associated with their health care. MyChart, a tremendous advance, again, putting a lot more information about health and health care in the hands of our patients. We'll continue to invest in increasing the capabilities of MyChart to better serve our patients in the years ahead. You heard about the Lean projects, just one of the approaches we're using to take a look at how we work together, and how we improve efficiency, use our resources more effectively over the course of time. So an investment in making ourselves more efficient, helping us understand efficiency better, is also an important part of our approach to improving the infrastructure. And finally, improvements to our facilities. Not only do we need to be able to withstand storms, but our facilities need to be more flexible in terms of their ability to be used. That means looking at hours of operation, looking at how they can be adapted or changed, even on a fairly short notice basis to accommodate a need that pops up. So a lot of thinking going on. While we do the storm-related repairs and storm-proofing, thinking also about why we have this opportunity, how do we make our facilities more efficient and more flexible for the future? Finally, the other theme, strategic realignment. Now, it may sound a little scary, when you start thinking about, oh my gosh, realignment, what does that mean? And are we talking layoffs? That's the question always comes to me. No. What we're really thinking about, again, is efficiency, how we use our resources most effectively. What groups need to come together? What resources can be shared more effectively? Where do we invest to create the biggest bang for the buck, make the most of the marvelous skills of our people? So we've done a lot of thinking about the clinical operation. We've created what I think is a very good clinical strategic plan, and we're implementing that plan, changing it as appropriate, adapting to current operating conditions, a realignment, if you will, of the clinical enterprise. The educational group has been through that beginning a few years ago. They continue to work on implementing some of the strategic improvements that we've identified, realigning not only the programs that are focused on education, but realigning our thinking about what education courses, what education programs we offer, and how they all fit together, not only for the benefit of UTMB, but for all the communities we serve and for the state of Texas. We did that some time ago with the research operations, our research leadership now is fully engaged in helping us think about how we update that plan, again, focused on identifying our greatest strengths, our opportunity to best leverage those, our opportunity to improve our infrastructure that supports research and make us more effective over the course of time. We'd like to be able to hand those thoughts to that new dean and provost when she or he is identified and joins us hopefully sometime later this summer or in the early fall, and so that work is proceeding. This is something else, along with change, that I don't think will ever really completely stop. We create plans, we think about where we need to be strategically, we think about the tactics associated with achieving strategic success, and we have to continually think about how those plans should change based on what's happening around us. And of course, a lot of things. We've talked about the environment in which we operate, the funding that comes from the state, politics, social demographic trends, economics, all kinds of things that affect what we do, how we work, and the outcomes that we're trying to achieve. So strategic alignment, realignment will be a continued point of focus for us in the years ahead. Culture, I started talking about this a few months ago, beginning with the town hall I did in January. I guess truthfully, I've never really stopped talking about our culture because I have so much faith in it. It is so strong. It has sustained us through thick and thin for 120 years. But as I mentioned in that January town hall, we want to keep all the great things about our culture, but we also want to make sure that it is up to date, it is current, and it is functioning at a level that enables us to best work together. So I talked about culture of trust. We've had subsequent conversations since that time in the health system, in the academic enterprise, and the business support areas about what culture of trust really means. And we're developing more ideas about the application of the concept of a culture of trust in each of our work units. And that's important for us to do, and we'll continue to do that over the coming months. But I want to come back to the points that I tried to make in January. These are the tenets of a culture of trust from my perspective. Everybody here has a role. Everybody who's been with us since Hurricane Ike, or everyone who's joined us, has helped us achieve the level of success that we've achieved. Everyone is important as we move forward, and when we leave someone behind or they take themselves off the playing field, it's not a good thing. So we want to make sure that our culture is optimally functioning so people don't get left behind, so they don't get pushed out, so they don't remove themselves from the opportunity to be effective as we go forward. Something that started a few years back now when we started looking at complex systems in healthcare delivery. Focus on why do those fail? For a long time, and I know this from my surgical training, we thought it best to blame individuals. When individuals foul up, things fail, and you need to be superhuman. You can never make a mistake, and if you do, you're worthless. So don't ever make a mistake. Well, what a lot of pressure on us as humans. And as knowledge has increased and technology has improved, the operating conditions have become more complex, just that much more pressure. And we now know, based on our neuroscience research, that our brains do dysfunction on occasion. We can't help it. We are programmed to make mistakes. How do we reconcile the two? Well, we certainly have learned that that's not just true for healthcare delivery. It's true for just about everything we do. It's true for all of us on a daily basis. So we believe the solution is to design systems to achieve certain outcomes and build compliance in the system. And what compliance means is that the system can move on and be successful even when calendar has a brain mistake. And so what we're focused on, particularly as I get older and my brain doesn't function as well, is systems that accommodate each of us, accommodate that tendency to make mistakes, and still allow us to achieve successful outcomes in very complex conditions. So part of the culture of trust is learning to change our thinking so that we focus on making sure that those systems work, and we move out of that sort of inbred tendency we have to want to blame each other for causing mistakes. And unfortunately, at times when we're under stress, we have a tendency to sort of extrapolate that and blame someone else before a mistake ever occurs, but predict that they're going to make a mistake because they're thinking differently than us. And that's also a part of culture of trust, is we learn to appreciate that diversity of thought makes us stronger. That should make sense to all of us because diversity and appreciation of diversity is a big part of the culture here. Challenge for us as we plan our work, particularly in these complex systems, to get comfortable with the fact that just because somebody else thinks differently than we do and they propose a different way to go at a particular problem with perhaps a different solution, but a good one, that's as good as our thinking and our outcome. But that's what we need to do. And that's what this focus on a culture of trust will help us do, is to learn how to harness best that diversity of thought. When we can do that, when we can focus on achieving a range of outcomes that everybody interprets as success, then we're going to be functioning at the right level. Foster an environment of trust and accountability, obviously that makes sense. And then invest in our people. People are our most important asset. That's also an important part of culture of trust and an important part of our strategic thinking. So focus on culture. Another one of those pillars, if you will, another one of the themes that's very important for us as we work to achieve success in the future. All right, so last thoughts, last slide. The future, as I mentioned. A lot of change coming. We know that. We can cover our ears, we can close our eyes. The change is going to happen. And so we're going to be most successful when we understand that, we embrace that, and we create systems, infrastructure that can accommodate change. I think it's okay for us not to be able to absolutely predict the future. Now, we'll do our best, and I think that we today understand the major trends, we understand the range of outcomes, but we're not ever going to get it exactly right. So we need to have the ability to make quicker decisions, to be able to accommodate changes in our operating environment. And that's what we're working to do. So be prepared and be flexible. One of the solutions, improve our infrastructure, improve our ability to make fast decisions and implement those. Remain strategically focused to ensure alignment to the markets, to the opportunities around us, and to best leverage our strengths and resources. And finally, make appropriate modifications to our culture, focused on those elements of a culture of trust that enable us to work together effectively, enable us to work with others effectively, make us very attractive as a collaborative partner as we go forward. So those are the things that I wanted to visit with you about today. Again, I've tried to avoid going back into a rehash of what you've heard from our marvelous executive vice presidents. I'm happy to answer whatever questions you have or take any comments or suggestions. Thank you very much. All perfectly clear? No questions? Raul, you must be thinking of some question.
What's going on with CMC?
CMC, thank you. What we hear from Austin is that the legislative leadership is pretty much decided the role that they would like for us to play and for TDCJ to play in our partnership. And so we're awaiting confirmation of that. We believe that the next step will be contact from the legislative leadership in Austin. We'll likely have another meeting and understand how we're going to make this work for fiscal year 13 and go forward. We'll then plan to go into the preparation for and then actual deliberations in the next legislative session to further define our course. So from my standpoint, I think things are going to go on as they have. I want to again say thank you to the marvelous people we have who work in the correctional managed care enterprise. I know things have been ambiguous, they've been uncertain, but to a person, each person who works for us to deliver care has continued to do that without looking back. The patients have received excellent care. The patients, look at those outcomes, they're among the best in the nation, and we're one of the most efficient systems in the nation. That's all due to that incredible group of caregivers that we have. So again, thank you to them from me, from executive leadership, and a little bit more to come, but it looks like that the arrangement certainly will probably continue through the end of the next fiscal year. And we'll certainly keep everybody informed as details develop. Other questions?
Or an ACO-led model or whatever, ultimately there will be a requirement for more primary care. So I'm just curious, is there a long-term endeavor to either recruit or train more general pediatricians, family physicians, or internists? And I know that we're limited on how much candor we can actually apply to the answer. Thanks.
Yes, thank you very much. That is part of the clinical strategic plan to develop an additional number of primary care physicians and deploy them in our primary service area. The market study that we did as a precursor to developing that clinical strategic plan clearly identified that there's a great deal of need for additional physicians and healthcare providers in that primary service area between here and Houston, essentially. We have that quantified into numbers, and not only of primary care physicians, but also specialty physicians. And so we continue to look at those numbers, look at those geographic areas of need where there is poor access or where there's more than a 6-month wait to first appointment, and those are our primary targets. We're also, as you mentioned, thinking about what changes are coming in health management and healthcare delivery. And so most of the models, or many of the models, revolve around a different sort of engagement with primary care providers. So it makes great sense for us to strategically think about how we best use the range of primary care providers in our health system as we go forward, and how our educational system looks at that need and helps us meet the need to provide providers not only here for our service area, but for locations around the state and around the nation. So yes, it's something we continue to look at. Our plans accommodate those needs and those predicted changes in the healthcare system. And as I mentioned, we'll continue to implement those plans and then modify them as appropriate based on the things that are actually happening. So thank you for that question. So the question then, I'm going to repeat it a little bit to make sure I understand, also for everybody to hear, is opening statement, we have a lot of clinics now. We expanded the number of clinics, particularly on the mainland after Hurricane Ike. And are we going to continue with that sort of expansion of the numbers of clinics as we move forward? Essentially, what is our strategy for outpatient clinics and other service areas, locations over the coming years? Thank you for the question. This is also part of the clinical strategic plan. We think about that primary service area, which is essentially between here and Houston, expands a little bit to the east and west. And again, we understand where there are issues or problems in accessing physicians and healthcare providers. That involves primary care and specialty care. Right after the storm, we had the need to open clinics so that our patients could be seen. The island clinics were challenged. We were worried we couldn't get them open quickly. Essentially, we just looked at available locations on the mainland that either had served as a place where healthcare was provided or could be easily converted, and selected a number of those and opened our clinics. As we've repaired our capacity on Galveston Island, as we've looked at those market studies, we've refined that deployment. So we pulled back from some of those locations. We have moved a few clinics around. We've consolidated some, as we did with the multi-specialty center, which is in the Victory Lakes Shopping Center there between the Sports Authority and the Hobby Lobby. Essentially, and I'll ask Donna and Sandy and Diana to correct me if I make some mistakes in describing this, but going forward, we're following what the market study showed us, which is that people, our patients, really would like to have access to outpatient providers within 10 to 15 minutes at most driving time from where they live or work. So our patients really like the concept of having outpatient clinics close to where they live or work. And again, most of our patients are in that primary service area, so we've extended what we did after Hurricane Ike and realigned our thinking about where those clinics need to be, particularly in areas where there's not as much access as we think should exist. We're using the 2 Victory Lakes clinics and that land that we have in Victory Lakes as a hub of sorts for mainland activity. So we have the Specialty Care Center, which is on that land, the Multi-Specialty Center, which is in the shopping center that's just south of that, and those are our surgical and medical points of service for higher-end outpatient service. And then ringing those in the surrounding communities are assortments of primary care and specialty care providers, again, based on where our patients are located, what the market studies tell us. Market studies also told us that most of our patients, when they need high-end inpatient care, are willing to travel a little further, either into the Texas Medical Center or to Galveston for care in our hospital here. And so our strategy is based on the market study, moving along from what was a must for us after Ike to something that's now aligned with what the market is telling us and about what the patients are telling us about how they like to access providers. Anything that you guys want to add to that, Diana?
I think that sums it up. We've got, at the Victory Lakes, we've got the 2 centers you mentioned, and then we've got pediatrics and dermatology and women's services and ENT. So, and then fanning out from that, the primary care clinics.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question. Other questions or comments or concerns? All right, well, thank you all very much for being here today. Thank you for your marvelous work. We appreciate very much what you do.